The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has suspended Mali from all its institutions, while the African Union is demanding an immediate return to a civilian government. And that's after Army officer Colonel Assimi Goïta announced himself as chairman of the National Committee for the Salvation of the People in Mali. Before sentiments boiled over late Monday night, leading to the arrest and detention of President Ibrahim Keïta and his prime minister by dissident forces, Nigeria had committed men and resources in a bid to avert the worst-case scenario. Unfortunately, that seems to be where it has all ended. What more could be expected from Nigeria in this matter? Or is affirmative action the way to go, which analysts have called the shortest route to another Liberia-Sierra Leone scenario? Well, joining us now for a comprehensive look at all of this is Ambassador Olusegun Akinsanya, a former Nigerian ambassador to Ethiopia with concurrent accreditation to Djibouti. Ambassador Akinsanya is also a former Nigerian permanent representative to the African Union and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA. He is also first national chairman of the Association of Retired Career Ambassadors of Nigeria. He has also served as regional representative of the Institute for Security Studies, a Pan-African policy research institution and think tank on peace and security matters. Ambassador Akinsanya, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the morning show. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Ruben.
Good morning.
And thanks for having me.
Yes, it's good to have you again. Great delight to see you. Well, very quickly, ECOWAS is intervening in the situation.
It's always a pleasure, Ruben. This is the payback time.
ECOWAS is holding a virtual meeting today to address the situation in Mali. Already, ECOWAS has suspended Mali. Now, Nigeria has asked for the activation of the ECOWAS standby force. What should we expect as possible outcomes of the meeting that ECOWAS leaders are having today? And what more do you think ECOWAS can do to further mobilize international solidarity to address the crisis in Mali?
I'm aware that the situation in Mali is of concern, and it's a reversal of the measured progress that Africa and indeed the West African sub-region has had in the last decades. As a sort of background to the situation, you will recall that Mali is a very vast land. It's one of the poorest African countries, in the sub-region. In spite of the major success that it made in the first generation with Modibo Keïta, with the likes of Alpha Konare, Toumani Touré, and all that. But there have been quite a lot of problems in terms of protests, corruption, and all that. And this has really reversed the problem that has now even led to a push or a mutiny, which is not good for the governance and democracy in Africa. The protocols on good governance and democracy, the Lomé Convention, was designed to make a progress by African countries in terms of good governance and democracy. But as I said, what we have seen is a reversal. And the ECOWAS, both the ECOWAS has issued a statement in terms of course, condemning the push, and also in spite of the mediation that has been done by our former president and President Buhari personally going to Bamako, that they must return to the constitutional order. All the people that have been arrested by these pushes, to be, must be released. And the ECOWAS has issued a very strong statement that nothing short of return to the constitutional order will be acceptable in terms of the norms, both in the ECOWAS and the African Union.
Well, Ambassador, what is the likely success of ECOWAS in all of this, given that they had tried to mediate before the situation degenerated to this level? What's the likelihood of that success?
Well, the ECOWAS, I mean, they are meeting today at the summit level, and our president is the current chair, and Nigeria is well respected not only in the West African sub-region but also in Africa. The ECOWAS, I mean, I can imagine that the position will still be to continue to put pressure on these pushes that coming to table and restoring the constitutional order would be the best way forward if Mali is to make a lot of success. And I believe that this is what the ECOWAS will be pushing. That the mediation has been on for a long time, but in spite of the mediation, I mean, there's some opposition groups, some of the military, and it's not the first time that the military with their political mobilization is coming into the situation in Mali. So I will expect that the ECOWAS will still continue to push for the return to the constitutional order, where the so-called transition program, I mean, it's just not right now for us to continue to have the military in governance structures. And I believe that this is what the government, both Nigeria and then the other member states will be pushing, that there must be a return to the constitutional order.
When are we going to stop the military from intervening in political crises all over Africa? When?
Well, the time is now. I think, it behoves on the political leadership across Africa to by the measures, press on the leadership in most of these African countries to be inclusive, good governance, providing jobs, providing the necessary things that would be for the well-being of African countries. And the military has a responsibility to defend, but not for governance. I think this is a question that must, in terms of getting the military to do what they are supposed to do, defending the integrity and the sovereignty of the various countries, but not to delve into the governance elements. It is outdated. It is not necessary, but of course, the leadership, particularly in some West African countries, also need to be more responsive to the needs of the people. Because West African sub-region, because of the proximity, some of these issues can be infectious. We are seeing what is happening now in Côte d'Ivoire, that the constitution has been tampered with, and there is a gun for a 70-year-old seeking the third term. Ditto for Guinea, and there are quite a lot of other African leaders there. So why the leadership has to be responsive, why they have to provide good governance for their people, why they have to ensure that the element human security is addressed, because human security is the totality of all that makes an individual to be secure in an environment. Freedom from want, food security, and humanitarian engagements, and ensuring that it's not only the states, but also the non-state actors have a very important role to play. And I believe that with this cohesiveness, with this, the military will stop their incursions in Africa. But all these problems have also been exacerbated by the jihadist incursions into the Sahel. The whole of the Sahel now is inundated, invested with the cells from the ISIL, the ISWA, and it's also an issue that this needs to be addressed. All hands needs to be on deck to ensure that the political forces, the civil society organizations are involved in ensuring that there's inclusiveness. And I believe that with good governance is what people need. Freedom from fear is what people need. Freedom from scarcity employment and the general good for the greater number is what people do. So these are the things that I believe will ensure good leadership. And the military, there has to be a constant impression on the military to say that their role is to defend the territorial integrity of the country and not to be involved in governance, in organizing coups, which is outdated, really.
Well, we've talked about ECOWAS and its plans to intervene, but we know that, of course, Nigeria will end up playing a lead role, more so as our president is the current chairman of ECOWAS. But when President Buhari and President Jonathan traveled to Bamako to meet with the various parties involved in the emerging crisis, as it then was, many Nigerians were protesting that why don't we focus on Nigerian problems instead of worrying about what is happening in Mali. So I would like you to help us clarify how strategic the crisis in Mali is to Nigeria's own foreign policy considerations within the sub-region. And then what should be the role of France in all of this? Because in the past, when we intervened in Mali, at the end of the day, the credit went to France. What kind of strategic engagement should we have with France, who also obviously has an interest in Francophone West Africa?
Well, I mean, Ruben, that's a very good question, and that applies mainly to many African countries, particularly the Francophone African countries. The situation, the problem in Mali has been compounded by the jihadist incursion. You're aware, Ruben, that I work with the Pan-African Institute for Security Studies, a think tank. I had the opportunity some few years ago to bring researchers to the Institute of International Affairs. And the work done on the situation in Sahel, following the problems in the northern part of Mali. And they came out with certain proposals on the need to ensure that issues of human security, issue of containment is pursued. Now, applying all to the situation in Africa, the solution does not lie in military coups. It does not lie in the fact that there are concerns. What is important is to build institutions that will allow for dialogue, institutions that will allow for discussing issues, problems that countries have. The solution does not lie in military incursions, because that does not provide, it aggravates the problem. And particularly now that, you see, I think, I've read quite a lot on the social media about relating some of the problems to our situation and to other African countries. If you look at some of these West African countries, Well, it's in line with what Obama said, that you need institutions, not strong men. There are quite a lot of strong men along those lines. But you need institutions, you need to have democratic institutions, which I believe is not absent in Nigeria. One can say that we are not there yet, but I think if many other countries toe the lines of countries like Nigeria, South Africa, of best practices, of course, you will continue to address this problem. The problems will not go in a day. They are daunting. It's affecting a lot of people. It's affecting Nigerians. But I believe the solution does not lie in having coups, because that is a reversal of the gains that we have made. That's a reversal. Well, I'm not surprised that the ECOWAS has banned Mali from the policy organs, decision-making process. This is also what is done in the AU. You ban them from participation to be able to send the signals, to send the right signals to these pushes, that it is not the way forward. The way forward is to have constituted order, the constitutional order, and you don't tangle, you don't tamper with the constitution, as Alassane Ouattara has done, and others are doing. And the role of France also in the situation is to be examined by the ECOWAS countries. I mean, we've seen what they do on the backing of the ECO, and they use the same Ouattara. But what is important for Africa is that, yes, you have the United Nations peacekeeping mission. You have the American drones parading the whole of the northern part of Mali. You have a lot of foreign incursions, foreign interests. But the solutions lie with the Malians themselves. ECOWAS will need to push for them to come to the table. If it's going to be a government of unity, that will lead to the elections, we must now get the best practice of having a constitutional order, not through coup d'etats, not through pushes, not through elements. It's outdated. One does not see a situation where now there will be a military man that is now parading himself in the international fora, in the AU. It will not even be allowed. So the Malians have to really solve their problems. They have to look at the constitution and be able to, and that is what Nigeria should be pushing. And there are also implications. I mean, with the role that Nigeria is playing, and you know, it will have a lot of Nigerians are in Mali. A lot of Africans will be affected, the migration element, and people will expect Nigeria to play the role, because we said that he that pays the piper dictates the tune. We must be conscious of the implications for this, particularly with our porous, the porous borders and the role that we are playing in our own national development. So it's work in progress. Nigeria will not fold its hands. We have never folded our arms within our own limitations and resources, but consistent with the role that Nigeria plays in the international scene. We will continue to provide this mediative role and impressing on the leadership across Africa. I mean, most of the West African countries are loaded with these leaders who don't want to leave the scene, and you know, that has to be reversed in the interest of the people.
Well, Ambassador, given all that has happened in Mali in the last decade, would you say former President Keita was a victim of circumstance? And, you know, you listed those foreign troops on ground in Mali. Would you also fault the approach to tackle destabilization in the region, considering the strategic role that Mali plays in the Sahel region and the insecurity?
Well, I think, well, that is a good question. Mali had played very prominent roles, as I said, over the years. It belonged to the old Casablanca group. The level of politicization, the level of political awareness is much. The former, one of their presidents was the chairman of the AU, Alpha Conare, and aside from that, the ATT, as the French will call the Toumani Touré. But in spite of all that level of politicization and strong leadership, there are things that were missing. Corruption was massive. There was cronyism. There were a lot of strikes. There were resignations. There were coups and counter-coups. And these young pushists that are in the barracks will not stay in the barracks. So, and this applies to some other countries. In the past, one would say that, oh, was there no French troops, because there are French bases that will have come in, as they did in the case of Ouattara in Côte d'Ivoire. And this is one of the lessons that Ouattara should learn. Ouattara should learn how he came into power with Gbagbo. But I mean, I know that the prevalence of French interest is massive. But I think, and I continue to say, that to be able to have a sort of peace and stability in Africa, there must be good governance. There must be democracy.
Ambassador, on that note, let's take a short commercial break. Yes. Please stay with us. We'll be right back with you. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us is Ambassador Olusegun Akinsanya, former Nigerian ambassador to Ethiopia with concurrent accreditation to Djibouti. Ambassador Akinsanya, thank you for staying with us. Hello, Ambassador. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ruben.
Yes, thank you for staying with us.
With difficulty, but go ahead.
Yes, if you may just conclude your thoughts on the question that Adesua asked earlier before we went on break. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can Adesua come again?
That's very fine. Thank you. We do apologize for the technical glitches you may be experiencing in hearing us. You were responding to my question about the role of the foreign troops in Mali and their intervention so far in quelling the increase in violence by the armed groups in the country because of the strategic role Mali plays. And I'd also asked you if former President Keita was a victim of circumstance.
Well, I think, the situation in Mali, there have been quite a lot of protests on Boubacar on resignation. Since, he was re-elected, he has the first term, and the re-election was shrouded with a lot of problems, and, there were massive protests, and well, there were movements, particularly by the conservative imam, the M5, that he should resign. And the mediation was on and eventually, and the people were even talking about the unity. But I would think that, well, the imam is the conservative imam who has been in the political environment since 2009, even against ATT, He has played very important role. He's a conservative imam. He believes in the spirituality. He has played that very role, and he has been adamant. So, but with all the posters, with all the accumulated problems, it led to where it is. And eventually, he has to resign. I don't believe that is a victim of circumstance. What has happened with the French, in spite of the French, is that he has not been able to mobilize the populace, including the opposition, to be able to come to table. I think there was something missing. And of course, again, there's the issue of the youth bulge. The youth bulge. I mean, anyone that is conversant with the Malian politics will know that there are quite a lot of prevalence of youths that are very radical. The civil society organizations are very radical. So I think there was something missing in Abubakar Keita's governance style, which could have been nipped in the bud. So as ECOWAS was making a lot of efforts, as ECOWAS was doing the mediation, of course the internal crisis was deepening. It was affecting, it became a mass protest until eventually the pushes started to come to say that they want to save the situation. As I mentioned about the foreign troops, the military, because it has been long drawn. We have had the United Nations peacekeepers, we have had the Americans, we have had the French troops as far as to the northern part of Mali, as far as the Timbuktu. They're there, but it does not bring any solution. And that is the lesson to be learned by as many African countries. There's a limit to which the foreign intervention can play a role in solving an internal problem of a country. It has to be inclusive. It has to be within the context of the people, the Malian people, and that is exactly what was a bit lacking that led to all these problems. And I talked about the youth board. It is very important. I recall that one of the meetings I attended once in Bamako, and Atete, the Toure, the one before him, made the point AU was organizing a meeting on youth empowerment. And Atete said in French, I don't know how good your French is, he said, il faut s'occuper de la jeunesse. Si on ne fait pas, ils vont s'occuper de nous. To translate that, it means that we have to take care of our youths. Because we have to we don't take care of them, they will take care of us. About a month later, they took care of Tumani Toure. So all I'm just trying to say here is that, yes, there are military involvements, there are military efforts, there are military engagement. AU has been engaged, the EU and many have been engaged in Mali. But in spite of all these engagements by the foreign intervention, what is important is that what is there, which way to go by the Malians themselves. And I believe that Abubakar Keita, in spite of all the mediation and efforts by government, he has not been able, himself and his prime minister, has not been able to fulfill that. So the lesson to be learned is that, yes, foreign intervention, yes, military incursions, the solution lies in the African solutions to African problems.
Great point you raised, sir. But let's also talk about the internal dynamics and the reason why some people are saying this might be political. Yeah, you talked about the role of the Imam, Muhammad Diko. But there's also the role of a certain Sissoko, that was the former culture minister, that is also part of this rally against, IBK, as it's fondly called. What's your take on the internal squabbles and internal polity in Mali? Could it have been a predisposing factor?
Well, it could be. It's a factor. I mean, in any political system, you have centripetalists and centrifugalists. But what is important is to adopt a centripetal dimension to issues. There will always be diversions. There will always be the opposition. There will always be the radicals. And of course, this has been exacerbated by the jihadist incursion into Mali. But in any situation like that, institutions will play a very critical role. I mean, in our system, in spite of all our inadequacies and what people say, we still have a parliament. We have oversight functions. We have the civil society. We have the press. We have people who are protesting on issues, as long as it is done within the constitutional order. But is it the same? Can you say that it is the same thing with Mali? In spite of all the problems that we have had, I think the problem is the failure of institutions. The Constituted Assembly, I mean, this problem arose out of an election situation. I mean, we've had election problems in this country. We have the legal system. We have the tribunals. We have the Court of Appeal. We have the Supreme Court. So we go through all these processes to resolve our internal problems. And I believe that this is the way to go. And within the AU, I had the singular honor of representing my country in the AU as chairman of the Permanent Representatives Committee. And we discuss all these issues. There are normatives, even though there are quite a lot of normatives, and the implementation of those normative agreements are very key. But all the normatives are there, the Lomé Convention. The African governance architecture places a lot of emphasis on institutions, on the civil society organizations, on the women organizations, on the private sector, to have all hands on deck in this inclusiveness. But this is, in most cases, except in some few countries like Senegal, that we have this degree of sophistication, and even Mali. I used to be a student in the University of Dakar on the French course, and I know how politically mobilized the Malians are. But over the years, I think governance has been a major problem. And this is what is playing out. But I hope that with ECOWAS, with the best practices, with the role of Nigeria, there will be a new dimension, a change. The military these pushes don't need to be there. Whatever plans they have, they cannot salvage the country. It has to be done. There has to be elections and restoration of the constitutional order as soon as possible in Mali.
ECOWAS heads of government are meeting today. They've already taken some steps, made some announcements. What additional steps are open to ECOWAS as a body? And what are your expectations in terms of the outcomes from the meeting that is being held today?
I think the sanctions, for my mind, I mean, based on the practices, the sanctions will be strengthened. The sanctions regime will be strengthened. It will even meet the cutting of various border closures, stifling the military for them to kick them out, and applying sanctions and appealing to our partners. The United Nations Security Council has met, the AU Peace and Security Council has met, and the EU, and even France, has to play that role in ensuring that all partners, all are on deck to ensure that these pushes, or the mutineers, the way they call themselves, are still out. They don't have a role in the contemporary Mali. They cannot provide any solution to the Malian crisis. It is the Malians themselves that we prove, as I've always said, action, I mean, the African solution to African problems, it's no longer a jargon. It's a program of action. The solutions has to come from the Malians themselves, and I believe that this is what ECOWAS will be pushing for. Well, I don't think the Gambian experience is going to play out, in which we mobilize forces to go and oust. I don't think, I've not foreseen that, but it's something that could be on the cards if they become intransigent. But I believe that with all the pressure, with the meeting of the minds, and with the unanimity of international action, I think the pushes will still reason. and let the Malians solve their problems and move forward.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Akinsanya, for helping us shed light on many issues affecting Mali and the intervention of the international community. Thank you very much.